Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Find Your Fall CSA event. We're excited you could join us today. And we're also excited that we have Chef Edward Lee and Collis and Jessica from the Lee Initiative here with us today as well. So just a few quick housekeeping notes. As everyone trickles in from the waiting room, we ask that everyone just remain muted. You can submit any questions you have for Chef in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. And we are recording this event if you need to hop off. So welcome to the Find Your Fall CSA event. This is our conversation with Chef Edward Lee. My name is Katie Harvey and I am the CSA program coordinator for the Organic Association of Kentucky. We are co-organizing a week-long CSA promotion with Bluegrass Farm to Table, Edible Kentucky Magazine, Kentucky Horticulture Council, and Kentucky Proud this week. So if you're not already familiar, I want to share just a few quick notes about this event, ways you can plug in and get more information. We are featuring over 30 farms and CSA offerings all across Kentucky and CSA shares that are available right now in September, October, and November for you to purchase. You can go to our Facebook group, CSAs in Kentucky, to learn more. And we also have information on the Kentucky Proud CSA directory. So you'll see the full list of participating farms and a map on the desktop version where you can locate by county. So definitely check that out. And for anyone that's on the call that's not familiar with CSA, just want to offer a quick overview of this food purchasing model. So CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture and is essentially a local food subscription. So it's purchased from your farmer, normally paid for in advance of the growing season, and it helps finance the farm's seeds, labor, equipment. And in the case of a fall CSA share is going to help support any growing endeavors for next year's operation. So CSA offers a more secure market for the farmer. It helps members gain access to the freshest foods possible during the growing season. And what separates CSA from other box models is that relationship between the farmers and their members. So members invest in the farm and those farmers do all that they can to provide a very high quality eating experience for the members and take them on the journey that is growing food in Kentucky, no matter the weather or the conditions. So this week we are featuring all types of fall shares that include subscriptions for produce, for meat, for value added products or a combination. So check out the Facebook group and the Kentucky Proud directory for more information on those partner farms. We are excited today to kind of talk with Chef Edward Lee about his passion for local seasonal ingredients. He's going to be sharing more about the Lee Initiative, as well as talking about solutions for creating a more resilient food system. So I am going to, without further ado, introduce Chef Edward Lee, who is known by most and has done so much to promote local foods in Kentucky. He's joining us today from DC. Chef Edward Lee is the author of Smokin' Pickles and Buttermilk Graffiti Recipe cookbooks. He's also the chef owner of 610 Magnolia and Cora in Cincinnati. He's culinary director of Succotash, and he appears frequently in print and television, including earning an Emmy nomination for his role in the Emmy award-winning series, The Mind of a Chef. And most recently, he wrote and hosted the documentary Fermented, and living in Louisville and DC. So he's going to share more about all of these endeavors and kick it off a little bit with the Lee Initiative. So Chef, if you want to take it away and share a little bit more about this nonprofit before we get started with our conversation, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you for having me on here. It's an honor, and anything to do with Kentucky farms is always something that I'm passionate about. So thank you. You know, we started the Lee Initiative, almost 4 years ago now. And it really started as a way for us to empower diversity and equality in the restaurant business and in the industry. And we started with a women's empowerment program. And it was chugging along really great, and COVID happened, and we suddenly found ourselves sort of, in crisis mode, and we became a relief kitchen center, and we did over 22 or 23 relief kitchens around the country. And we still continue to do some here and there, depending on what emergencies happen. And we found something about sort of the power of food and the power of a meal when people are in need and when people are hungry and when people are laid off and they don't know where their next paycheck is coming from. And it was very powerful and it was very impactful. And then we also saw that not only were restaurants shutting down, but farms were being affected because because of the restaurant boom that has happened in the last, or let's say the farm to table restaurant movement, the small independent restaurant movement that happened in the last decade. Many small farms were had cropped up and were supplying, anywhere from 60 to 80% of their produce and meats were going direct sales to restaurants, which is a huge industry, and it was something that it takes time and risk and collaboration to build up that kind of relationship. And for so many restaurants, mine included, like at 610 Magnolia, we charge a little bit more for our meals. And part of the reason we do so is because we can proudly say that our meat comes from a better quality source. Our produce comes from a better quality source. We know where we're sourcing, our poultry from and our fish. And so these things cost more to do things right. And we're not selling you the same meat that you're buying, that you'll be eating at some chain restaurant, right? And so we, as restaurants and chefs, we take pride in that. And what we saw during COVID was that a lot of these farms that had developed this beautiful relationship with independent restaurants were at risk of losing their business because all of a sudden, can you imagine, you have a farm and 60% of your business goes away overnight. And what was different was, restaurants, we could at least, turn off the electricity and shut down the lights and furlough everyone, go away. Farms were not able to do that. You can't just walk away from, a herd of cattle or, sheep, and you can't just hit pause on a crop of vegetables coming up. So they were really in dire need. So part of we started what we call the Reboot program, which was really meant to save small farms. And I think it's over $1.5 million so far that we've invested in this. And we would buy surplus crops, meats, whatever, vegetables from farms, and then donate them back to local restaurants who were doing community relief work. And so what we were really proud of is not only were we feeding people in these various communities, but we were feeding people with farm grown vegetables and meats that a lot of times relief meals are kind of like the lowest the cheapest things you can find, and canned vegetables and all that, which listen, is fine in an emergency.
Yeah.
But we also thought it was really important that these meals were being produced by chefs using the best ingredients they could find to feed their communities, and there was a sense of pride in these meals, that there wasn't just that we wanted to get rid of the stigma of coming up and accepting a free meal, that this wasn't welfare or this wasn't charity. It was more like, we got a group of chefs that are unemployed and a group of farmers that have nothing to do with their vegetables, so come and have a good meal. And I think we showed that. We've sold out of food every single day. We ran out of food every single day. So this is something that we're really proud of, and now that businesses are open back up, and although who knows what's going to happen, but there's some kind of, the economy is sort of moving, but farms are still in a very tenuous situation. So are restaurants. So we're looking at ways to continue to help, and we still have the Reboot program still continues to thrive, and even now, because there are people that still can't afford. There are a lot of restaurants who are in a position right now where they're like, I used to use organic beef for my menu, but now I can't.
Mhm.
So I'm using commodity beef because that's the only thing I can afford, and I can't, I don't have the money, and they're trying to like grow their businesses back from scratch. So, we still have programs where we're trying to say, okay, listen, like, don't abandon your ethics and your morals just because of money. I mean, it's hard, but we're trying to help, chefs and restaurants navigate, this time until we can get back to some kind of like predictable pattern of business.
Absolutely. And I feel like that strategy and kind of re-navigating the pipeline and connecting more farmers with eaters is what we're also trying to do with the CSA, and just kind of the closer you can be to your food. And like you mentioned, just kind of offering really high quality food as a part of those relief programs is a really, really cool endeavor and really meaningful. And so that was kind of what I wanted to talk with you about today. I know your restaurant at Sixton Magnolia started with a passion for sourcing kind of local in-season ingredients. And I was just wondering, for folks on the call, they are also very passionate about local foods. Did you come with 610 with that passion of this is going to be a local menu, it's going to change seasonally, and or did it kind of evolve at the same time? And how did that change the way you cook or continue to kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I think any chef that's curious and wants to do good food, at the end of the day, my goal is to serve the best meal ever. And, that includes finding the fruits and vegetables that are in season, right? Because a strawberry in December is just not going to taste very good, no matter how much money you pay for it. So, a lot of it is just, it's market driven, right? I mean, strawberries are most delicious and cheapest when they are at their peak, so it just makes sense, so some of that, with meats and produce, it's just, I mean, the taste is just, and I always say, part of our reboot program too is we were giving organic meats to restaurants that previously had not been using organic meats or farm grown meats, and said, this is an opportunity. Here's $5,000 worth of meats. Try it, serve it to your customers, see what happens. And I think there's something that happens when you make that decision, because I worked at restaurants, when I was younger, where we just used commodity stuff and it was fine. You always say, you always hear some people say, well, there's not much of a difference between the two. Why should I pay the extra price? And I think at some point as a chef or as a business, you just make that commitment and you just say, listen, the quality is just so different that this is just going to be our baseline. And so we don't worry about chicken that's 79 cents a pound. We just go, whatever it is, we pay. It's $2.19 a pound, we pay it. And we price accordingly. And I think, over time, your customers appreciate that and they understand that, like, the chicken just tastes better. It's just different. It's just, and it's not even like a moral thing. It's just, it is a better quality, and it's better for the things that you put in your body. And I think, and for me, that's what it was. It was just like, I don't worry. It's like, yeah, I can save a lot of money every month by purchasing cheaper. You just make a commitment at some point and you go, this is going to be our baseline. And I think when you do that, it's actually really hard to go back. Because your customers will notice it, your cooks will notice it, you will notice it, and it's just hard. It's hard to go backwards when you do that. So a lot of times we're trying to flip or convince other restaurants to, like, just try this for 3 months and see how your customers react to it. And more often than not, they react positively. And for a small menu price increase, you can radically affect your customer happiness. And I think your staff too. Like, people don't talk about this enough, but like, your staff has an incredible sense of pride working there, knowing that they're doing something good, and just tend to have better retention, and you tend to have happier workers. And when your workers know that they're prideful of the stuff that they're selling, they just have a better attitude, and so I think that stuff's important. And and there's regional stuff. I mean, I remember moving to Kentucky and not knowing much about it, and in the first 2 weeks, I tasted, I was at some like roadside farm stand, and someone had a jar of sorghum, and I was like, what the hell is sorghum? And when I tasted it, I was like, well, this is pretty good stuff. And I bought the whole case, came back to my restaurant and threw out all my jars of French honey and said, we're switching everything to sorghum. And that changed the way the recipe go, right? The recipe has to change and everything has to change.
Mhm.
And you just adjust, but
Yeah.
it's we were cooking with sorghum 20 years ago. Um, when no one was really knew what it was. I mean, the locals did,
Yeah.
but not many people knew what it was.
It
Uh,
is, yeah, it is very specific to Kentucky. And I feel like so much of eating seasonally and locally is kind of trying new foods, discovering new foods, of course. And I feel like you've done such a great job. And I feel like part of the excitement around eating locally is also the stories behind the foods that are produced. And you've done like such a beautiful job of sharing those stories in your cookbooks, as well as through your restaurants and like through your menus. And I just was like going to ask you, is there like a particular story or something that like has got you really excited, or just kind of what gets you excited? What type of things do you feel like resonate with the eaters that you interact with?
I think people are definitely way more adventurous now than they were 20 years ago. So when it comes to like the world of food and food TV and magazines and all that, social media has created this appetite for food that um, is just so we. I always say, like, 20 years ago when we first started 610, I would put something on the menu, like, I don't know, pheasant, and people would go, "Well, that's weird. Why do you want to serve that? Like, just give me a chicken." And now those same people are coming in, and I'm serving like quail, and they're like, "Well, that's not weird enough. Like, I want something crazy. Like, surprise me. I want something crazy." And I think that's
Yeah.
it's a drastic shift, right? That food went from being something that was just your everyday sustenance to, like, it's an adventure, it's a sport, it's like, people go out, it's like going to theater, which I love, because that's what I personally got into this business, is to explore and try new recipes and things. And, like, I'm never happy making anything the same way twice. I always want to change just for the sake of change. Like, I think that spirit, will stick with me forever. Like, I enjoy that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm always looking for new outlets and new ways, right? So then, one of the things we started doing this rest of video recipes on a platform called What's Cooking. And a lot of people stayed at home and cooked during COVID. And so, like, some people enjoyed it, some people hated it. Some people, like, got really good at it. Some people were really frustrated because they didn't really know anything but like 4 recipes. Um, but regardless, I think there's a whole wave of, like, home cooks that are out there that are going, wait a second, like, I can do this. And while I don't want people to stop eating at restaurants, I think it's really good when people cook at home, because they appreciate the work that goes into it, and they understand the craft of it. And you don't have to be a chef or anything, but even if you cook twice at home, 2 times a week at home, you understand that there's a lot of work that goes into it, so that when they do go to a restaurant, they really appreciate it more. And they go, "Oh yeah, I know what it takes to roast a chicken. This is really good." Or on the flip side, you go to a restaurant and go, well, I can do this better at home. Like it
Yeah.
works both ways. So we have this platform where I'm teaching a lot of home cooks, simple recipes on a budget, but definitely, like, with a little creativity
Yeah.
and some different things involved. And
Yeah.
that's a great way to sort of get involved and be like, listen, I can make a coleslaw, using whatever cabbage in the supermarket, or I can make it going to the local farmers market and see what kind of local cabbages are growing, and use Napa cabbage or Savoy cabbage or, all the different
Oh,
varieties. All of a
yeah.
sudden your coleslaw goes from a 2 to a 7, It's
When you
like the
use
exact
those,
same
yeah,
recipe, you just changed out the ingredient. And I think those are things that, again, I think the next revolution comes from the home cook side where they start to go, wait a second, it does taste better when you use this. And it does taste better like, having a homegrown, organic carrot, versus
yeah,
sitting on a truck for 90 days.
yeah.
Those
Well,
things are,
and I feel like CSA members are definitely what you described, like some of the more adventurous eaters. They are like the challenge. They like trying new recipes. They like trying new things. And I was just wondering, I know you mentioned your What's Cooking app and your resource there, as well as your cookbooks for our event, for the Find Your Fall CSA event. Do you have maybe like a recipe or a video, or what do you feel like? What do you like to make in the fall? Like, what would
I like it all, but like, for example, we have, I think it's going up like literally this week or next week, but there's like a beef stroganoff recipe. And it's something that like I never grew up eating beef stroganoff. And I just like this, the name just sounds so antiquated. It sounds like something your grandmother makes and it's really heavy and it's awful. And like I just never ate it because I was like, who wants to eat
yeah.
beef stroganoff? And a couple years ago I tried it and I was like, this is really good. Like it's just beef and mushroom. It's like there's nothing,
Yeah.
but it's just like, who doesn't like that? But there's this connotation of it being like heavy or clunky or unsophisticated, right? So
Sometimes
we
it is.
do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you listen. Some people can make anything taste bad, so I'm sure there are bad versions out there. But we did a sort of like an updated version of beef stroganoff where
Okay.
we took out the flour and just made a reduction and made it a little lighter and made it with fettuccine, made it with fresh mushrooms, and it's really nice, and it's like this isn't your grandmother's beef stroganoff. So
Yeah,
stuff like
absolutely.
that.
And
I like taking classics sometimes like that and go, listen, there's a reason why this recipe is enduring. It's good.
mm,
There's things are classics for a reason, but sometimes even classics need a little bit of a makeover.
need an
So
update.
like something like that, I think is a good recipe. And
Yeah, absolutely. So encouraging everyone out there to update those classic recipes, replace, ingredients with local and season, and just trying something new or trying a familiar recipe in a new way. That makes a ton of sense. And I know I got excited when I saw that you had a documentary out about fermentation. And so the other recipe question I was going to ask was just, if you were what's a good starting point with fermentation for anyone that's excited to take the leap, but wants to get started?
make some kimchi.
Can you
Like,
give
why
people,
don't
yeah.
like just go right for it. Like, don't take baby steps. Go right for it.
Yeah, for folks on
And
the
it's
call.
really, I think everyone
Yeah.
that makes it, it's like, oh, it's so exotic. And like once you make it, you're like, you just chop up some vegetables and let it sit out. It's like it's not hard at all.
Yeah.
Uh, and people are really surprised by how easy it and how delicious it is. And it only takes like 2 weeks. It's not like you don't have to do like a
Yeah.
heavy 5-month fermentation on it.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to recipe in one of your cookbooks or like on the What's
Yeah,
Cooking?
actually, if you go to Smoke and Pickles, there's 4 recipes for one for each season.
Okay.
But like kimchi is not, there's not, everyone thinks of like the Korean cabbage kimchi, but kimchi, like there's you can kimchi anything,
And for
Once
folks,
you get the basics down, you can really do whatever you want, like substitute whatever you want.
yeah, and I think those are some of the best recipes when you can take a recipe and you can adapt it with the seasons, and it got that flexibility to it as well. And gosh, that's really exciting, and it's definitely great for fall, right? The basis of kimchi.
Oh, the cabbage is coming, and
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll direct folks there, maybe send a follow-up link. But I also just we just have 5 more minutes with you, but wanted to talk a little bit, circling back to kind of the Lee Initiative and community-driven initiatives. When we're talking about, sourcing more ingredients from local farms and trying to make that commitment to strengthening the food system. What are some other strategies or ways you see that we can all work together to heal the food system or build a more resilient food system, especially going through COVID?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think, we saw that during COVID. It really helped to, and we, for the LEAD initiative, for a lot of our reboot programs, we were just the middleman, right? So we had a program in Louisville where we fed 35,000 meals a week to public school families. And we used local farms, and we hired local chefs from Churchill Downs to process it all. We were just a middleman. I didn't cook a single thing. I didn't make a single delivery. I just, we connected the dots that needed to. And I think part of, and I remember speaking to a farmer, decade ago, having the same conversation that we've been having from the beginning and we still have today. And something that he said to me that I remember, he said, farmers aren't salesmen. Farmers are farmers. And we should be doing what we know best, which is to farm. Someone else needs to be the salesperson. Someone else needs to be the distributor. But when a farmer has to grow, harvest, distribute, pack, and sell, it takes time away from the farm and is unsustainable, I think. And I think part of what we need is a better system of middlemen, who are not looking at just the bottom line. Like, of course, everyone has to be profitable, but it's not just about bottom line. It's not just about where can I find the cheapest carrots, but where can I find the most competitive carrot that's this quality, and then connect them with the people that want it. Because I think the demand is out there. People do want it, and it's only growing. But we have to connect the dots. And make it easy for the consumer to get it, so that it's not always, and I'm not bashing Whole Foods, but so that it's not just like everyone thinks going to Whole Foods is a one-stop shop for feel good, produce. And we all know it's not often the case. So like but their expertise is in convenience. Their marketing and their not going to compete with Whole Foods. But you can make things easier through CSAs, through delivery system, whatever it is. I mean, and using technology, using like a Blue Apron model, whatever it is that's out there, using those to connect the dots and making sure that the consumers knows you're out there. I do think there's an opportunity for some kind of middle company to come in and say, here's the farmers, here's the consumers, and someone in the middle there needs to connect them and find a way to keep doing that, because farmers markets are really great, but they're not always the most convenient. Like they may have to go to a soccer game on a Saturday afternoon with the things that happening.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like
better outlets.
Yeah. And I feel like so much of it is the multi-pronged approach, right? Like trying to have all the different options and all the different ways to where, like, having the robust farmers market system, having a robust CSA offerings, having multiple different ways to plug in, and it not being so challenging. I guess the only thing, and we are kind of coming up on time, but just a quick follow-up to what you said. And if anyone has a question for Chef Lee, you can drop it into the chat. It's just, I feel like, what would you say in terms of like, so much is happening and people do try to make those connections, but like, I feel like that working together piece, right? Like if everyone, like if you see the connection that needs to happen between the farmer and the eater, but we have 20 different types of ways to get there, I feel like just in terms of like, the apps and technology are amazing, but it's like, I feel like just if you keep operating in your own silo of like how working together can, or just not duplicating, how we don't have to duplicate efforts, but we can strengthen efforts. I guess this I wanted to.
I mean, and I've seen this in different cities, and I haven't really seen it in Louisville, but like restaurants that turn their restaurant into a market during the day, and their restaurant at night. And you know, we see this too sometimes. People like with our customers are like, man, I want to do this barbecue tomorrow night and I want some really good pork. I'm like, just buy, I got 50 pounds here. Like just buy from us. Um, and
Yeah.
I think that also because everyone goes to restaurants, it's convenient. Every restaurant has parking. Like if there was a way that we could do a movement where like convince restaurants to devote some portion of real estate, or if your restaurant is only open at night, turn your restaurant into like a little mini market during the day, which a lot of restaurants did during COVID, and they were able to make some money off that. Like if you could continue that, that's a great way because now all of a sudden you have restaurants everywhere, and those are great outlets. And all of a sudden the restaurants are communicating. Usually they have all their customers' emails. Usually they send out newsletters. You know, restaurants are great communicators because we have the technology and we have all the
Mhm.
social media following. And if you can convince, you know, create partnerships between restaurants and farmers who, I'm buying your zucchini anyway. If I have an extra 5 pounds, I could sell it to people who wanted to buy it on the retail side.
Yeah.
I think it's a great connection, and like you see it in France a lot. Like restaurants will have like the little stalls out front, little boxes and prices, and you can literally eat a meal, come out and buy some stuff, and then go home, and you have, you know, the same eggplant that you were eating, take it home. So
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's a simple way of doing it where we could really pick up some traction.
absolutely. And just like the diversity of players, right? Diversifying like income streams for
Mhm.
restaurants or farmers, and also just bringing those like diverse set of stakeholders like all together um, seems like a key way. But that's a great thought. I feel like so much of what finding new solutions is like just seeing else, like what else is out there, what else is working, and like borrowing from a whole diversity of cities and countries. But we were so grateful for your time today, and I
Thank
feel
you.
like I'm excited and motivated. And you just shared so many wonderful reasons to kind of support local farms and buy seasonal ingredients and kind of make that commitment. I know almost everyone on the call is already dedicated to that charge, but just to continue to spread the word. And we want to do a quick shout out, a few quick shout outs